right way. This year, this current budget year, we budgeted for $450,890.50. And if you remember, that was a purposeful placement of having fund money that's available because we were not anticipating to potentially have a whole lot of carryover from ending out the 2020 year for backfilling for our placements, as well as we had concerns on revenue shortages from the COVID-19 response. So we did have a marker in this year's budget of that amount. Going forward into this next year right now, there's a proposal for a zero, but then as what just came down the pipe 2 days ago, we now have about a potentially $300,000-ish bill for a new courthouse roof, as Clerk of Court Tracey Goodman talked about this morning on having continued drip and drizzle. Our request for proposals came back. There'll be a bid proposal coming forward to Property Grounds and Committee next Thursday. So a placement and contingency fund for that may be appropriate there, may be appropriate to put it into a Fund 43 courthouse repair fund, but we'll sort that out over the next week or two. Fund 13, Community Development Block Grant Fund, recommend a zero amount there. That's kind of our in and out account for our CDBG funds. We have Fund 30, our debt service fund, where we had a budgeted amount last year of the $1,050,000, and that was our short-term loan fund. To be determined, marks on here though, is that it may be appropriate to have that actually come out as an expenditure underneath Fund 42. So we would still be using Fund 30 as a revenue in account for those funds, displace it to Fund 92, and then use our expenditures out of there so that we can track specified expenditures out of that. Now, UW Richland Center is Fund 32. The recommendation going forward into this year is a reduction of $10,000 from $60,000 to $50,000. There is a potential option for ARP funding if we want to get serious about keeping up with those buildings. We know that we have about $3 million of deferred maintenance out there that has been requested, and that includes the fire suppression system, fire alarm system, heating, cooling, different landscape items around that building to make it more accessible on fire lanes, etc. But the recommendation forward for operational purposes is going to be a reduction in $10,000. Symons Capital Improvement was a fund that was opened at one time to manage monies. It has been idle the last several years. Yes. Courthouse Repair Fund, again, $20,000 last year, $20,000 this current year, but then we might also use that as the fund in determining if, where, and how we're going to fund our roof repair. ARP funds would be another possibility for that project as well. Revolving loan fund, we've kind of gotten out of the revolving loan business. We have one existing fund, so everything there becomes a money in, money out. And then we have our Chamber of Commerce fund. We had $4,000 allocated there. It has not been taken out, requested, or utilized by Chamber of Commerce. Recommend zeroing that to a zero this coming year. And then if needs re-arise, or if there's a petition from the Chamber of Commerce, to reincorporate those funds. Mr. Chair, I'll maybe stop there and see if there's any questions in regards to these funds before we get into the office fund.
One question I had about contingency. So I think I saw somewhere in an email about a month ago, there was a use of the contingency fund. What's our balance on the contingency funds as of now?
Be able to pull the balance on it. The most recent transaction was the Casanova project, which I think was around $60,000 that we utilized out of there.
So contingency fund 11, isn't that 596?
We haven't used it all this year because that was last year.
569,000.
Yeah, wasn't there the backup camera system for the sheriff's department too?
Yeah, we just approved that in
Yeah.
LEJC coming out of contingency.
And it may not have been posted yet.
Okay.
Right.
So it very well could be things out, but yeah, 18,881, I think.
Yeah, so there is some money coming out of this.
So we have 550 grand in contingency right now, and then that would carry over.
Correct.
That's a non-lapsing account, so that would
Correct.
carry over. Okay.
Correct. So at the bottom of this thing we'll be making too is there's the potential then for using it as a spend down type of an asset.
Okay.
a surplus asset. Any other questions with those funds on the top?
I do have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the contingency fund, we put extra money in there with the idea that placements were gonna go over, and placements did in fact go over for 2020, did they not?
Yes,
How much did they go over?
we have to wait for the audit to come back on it, but
Yeah,
it's
you
gonna
know,
be, it's gonna be over. So there'll be some of that is gonna also kind of go away, which is why we have to wait until we sort out the audit to know what we would potentially have for a surplus, but I'm not expecting it to reach the $560,000 that we have in there. So there may be some money there for spending.
Okay, because I thought I heard Tracy say that it was like 1.3, and we budgeted 1.2. What did you budget?
1.1, I think we were about
That's
at.
200,000 that potentially will not be in this funds.
Correct. Yeah, it won't be the full balance amount that we've talked about today.
Okay.
And then the other part of the conversation too, though, is how much should we be holding on for that for contingent needs of things that come out like, just like the sheriff's office
Right,
example.
but in theory, we're budgeting what we need for placements for real in her budget.
Yes, so we're not relying on contingent fund 11 anymore for placements. We're plugging that into the actual fund lines. Correct.
Thank you.
But am I understanding it right, that we would not have to draw down on Fund 11 contingency fund if, to cover what we went over for institutional costs? There's all sorts of funds and all sorts of above and below,
Yeah.
surpluses and
Right.
deficiencies, so we could choose to draw down on contingency, but we could also choose to not draw down on contingency for that. Is that
That's a fair
a
statement.
fair statement?
Until the audit comes out, it's kind of a guessing game to know where everything balances.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, anyone else have questions so far about?
I only have a technical, I was down to 15% on my unit here. Does anyone else having that problem or?
Long time.
Yeah, if you need to get plugged in, we can make sure we get you.
I've been plugged in.
I'm at 47.
So on to the rescue, we had a board.
Okay, you can keep going.
Well, Marty, you're plugged in, right?
Well, son had a cord.
I brought my cord.
I started.
So then kind of to the bottom line of the office budget, as we talked about in the last meeting that we had where Derek and I presented, and you are familiar with our budgets. We've moved the positions of accounting supervisor and the payroll benefits specialist have been moved over to the administrator office's budget. With a 0% kind of increase to both of them. In order to meet the continued 0%, then we have the resolution that is given authorization for the administrator to incorporate an assistant administrator position. That's about $74,000 in added expenses for this year that is put on here as I have to cut this out to meet 0%, but I'm recommending and requesting to have the position added back in for 2022. The other one is additional contract expenses. There is the ability to cut into about $11,000 there. That was money that was kind of saved off to the side with anticipation that the administrator would be on the healthcare plan. It's been whittled down from about 19,000 to 11,000, and kind of seen to be able to use access to Carlson Detman, different legal services, consulting fees, etc. Recommending that we leave that out. Recommend that you agenda to have open up renegotiations with the administrators, agreement and reduction to not enter the additional $1,950 of increased pay. So coming forward for the add in and the add outs is going to be tracker here. Is going to be the $74,124.46 of added gap for the administrator position. And then having the ability, if you want to do a further reduction, as Clerk Kalish with his bare bones right now, and he's had to cut out all of his mileage and retraining. I still have in mind that amount of about $2,000 of playroom to reduce training expenses that I'm anticipating for myself and staff next year. Mr. Chair.
Okay,
I will just say that I am completely not in favor of you not getting an assistant. I think we need to figure out how to cover that position.
Melissa, I didn't hear you.
I said, I just wanted to state for the record that I am not in favor of him not getting his assistant. I think that that's a critical role that needs to be filled.
I absolutely agree.
Just one comment. I find it hard to believe that we can't find that person in our pool of workers. I think we already have that person somewhere. We just need to find it. I don't know, but what I'm saying is we don't need to add staff. I think we already have the staff. We just don't have it in the right place.
The
May I
position-
respond, Mr. Chair?
we'll let Supervisor Luck go first and she'll speak into the speaker and then you can go.
I'll just talk really loud. So we attempted in the Administrative Transition Committee, we did attempt to find that position in the, as you know, we were not overly successful, other than finding that position at Highway, which they're now asking for back. So I agree with you, though. I feel like there's got to be somewhere in this county.
Mr. Seat, we'll let Mr. Seat go.
Am I on?
Yes, you're on.
Thank you. I agree to some degree with Mr. Cooey that we may have someone in-house. This position is a very specific and specialized type of position, and it requires a very defined kind of set of qualifications that are particular to the administrator's needs. And that's a decision that I would think we would allow the administrator to make in terms of whether he hires someone in-house or out-of-house. He knows what kind of talent he's looking for and who he would need to, what kind of candidate he would need to fill that position.
Mr. Koo, you want to respond to that? I know he's kind of directly addressing what you were saying.
Don, it doesn't have anything to do with anybody. All I'm saying is the head count wouldn't change. Not necessarily we have a person already here. It's the head count. We wouldn't have to increase head count in the county to get that position. So we take it away from somewhere and he'd hire whoever he deemed necessary. But I feel that we have room in the amount of people we have working for the county so that he can have the person he needs.
I mean, you would subtract the hours from other positions.
But what I would say is maybe you remove a position from somewhere and the position goes to him.
Well, that's possible, but let's not sacrifice Peter to pay Paul.
Well, we got different opinions and that's okay. So Supervisor Gentis, go ahead.
Well, I just want about the legality. You've been, I've been reading the advertisements, so you obviously have been getting applicants, I assume?
We had the position posted in compliance for over 2 weeks. I have 64 applicants that expressed interest. I plan on interviewing 5.
Yeah,
At the same time, I don't plan on doing a full-on offer of the position and expect them to give a 2-week notice until this is kind of firmed up and we know for sure that this is going to be in the 2022 budget is how I plan on approaching it.
and I understand
That's
what
very
you're saying, that we should move someone in. It is true that someone within the county could be applying for it, and we at that point could address that person's position and see if others could be moved around. Is that correct?
I don't know if it would quite work like that because you're talking about the qualifications of a person then versus the merit and the need of a position in the hours of service. So that would quite match up. It could, but I'm not.
Okay, so Mr. Seat, she was just asking about what if an internal candidate applies, could that position be reduced? And he was saying probably not a good idea to think of it that way. But I do just want to say that we did reduce by 1, we did get a half FTE somewhere, maybe not quite a half, because it was
Not quite a half.
15 hours, but we got almost up to a half. So to your point, we were on our way, we're just not up to the one yet to make this balance out. So,
Well,
no, we have not,
we haven't agreed to that.
no,
yet.
we have a resolution that reduced that position to a half FTE. The highway commissioner is asking to add that back in with his 0% levy increase, but no action's been taken. It's just a proposal at this point. Supervisor Turk?
Again, discussions we're having here from, listening to MIS tell us how things have transformed since their department was created. We didn't have an administrator before. We don't have an administrative assistant yet, but we're looking at county government is being transformed. And when transformation happens, things have to change. Thus far, we've shown limited ability to tell people they have to make change as a county board. We're approaching the tipping point where we're going to have to tell people, no, I'm sorry, you can't do what you've always done. Whether it's telling department heads or even citizens of the county in some cases. Because we have limited availability of revenue, a limited pie that we can cut up. And if we need to do these things now because that's the current reality of how county government is moving, then we got to make those tough choices, or we can just bite off some ARP money and put it off for another year. As much as we would like to have all these things, every department head that comes and sits in front of us, well, I can't lose this because, and we nod our heads and agree, oh, the fair is important, extension is important, everything is important, but we can't do it all. I saw a great saying the other day, I can do anything, but I can't do everything. And that's where we are as a county government. We could do a lot of things, but we can't do everything. And that's difficult choices, and that's what we were elected to make.
I do think when that census data came out last week, that really hit me. Seeing that we had lost 800 people in this county. And how could we continue to grow the size of our staff when our county is shrinking? It shrank the most out of any in the state, according to the census at least. So that kind of just, for me, that's when I had that moment of reminding myself, oh, yes, like, how could we keep growing when our county's not?
And when you look at those green book numbers, Melissa and I were talking about earlier, our tax per capita, our debt service per capita.
It's high.
We have a very rural county with low population, low income, and low land values. To be able to deliver services that the people want and need is difficult to do if you're trying to compare apples to apples with another county that's vastly different than us. And I know we hesitate to do borrowing, but of late, that is the only way we've been able to bring extra money into to expand the pie at all. And yes, that creates a burden, and we're taking dollars out of people's pockets to do that. But the alternative is what we've been hearing from folks who've come before us today. Well, then I can't do this, I can't do that. It's not a fun place to be.
Oh, I think that's well said. But other thoughts or opinions?
We need,
That was kind of a take us to the woodshed speech.
well, we need to complain to our state and local representatives.
Well, I think what Dave is saying is very important, because I'm writing down
Absolutely.
the added things today that are kind of being petitioned to add back in. The
Yeah,
gap that we started with this morning with the preliminary guidance, and that doesn't include different offsets of revenues yet that we haven't calculated in, but the preliminary gap, we were at 465,000. With the different request items added in and factoring for potential health insurance. Now, it doesn't include HHS and kind of Pine Valley absorption, but just off the notes things here that I'm gathering, we already have $877,000 of requested add back in. But again, those numbers are, complete, but we've already kind of doubled our gap by the initial guidance that we've given out if we want to reincorporate this.
And that's not to say that anything anybody's requested is not important. They're all important. But we can't do it all.
Mr. Chair, I may be so bold as to recommend maybe a quick 5-minute recess, and then hopefully we have Sue over here at 2:00.
You want to end right there?
Well, we have, everybody can reset, maybe grab a sandwich.
Yeah, that sounds good.
A couple people may need
That's
donuts.
true, and that's the conversation.
Sounds good. We'll take a 5-minute recess. We'll be back at 1:57, Mr. C.
Yeah.
You start seeing tax base, which
Exactly.
you start to see some of this don't come, it hasn't come through in the calculation.
You want me to turn your brightness?
Right.
I turn your brightness up.
That's probably a little safe. Although that's what
Okay.
building houses.
See, it's almost-
Broadband
It's a
everywhere.
revenue source.
We have a lot more road.
There, a little lower.
Yeah.
Except
I messed up your list thing.
Move to the country and then are bad at the towers.
Yeah, they don't want the towers, they don't want the solar farms, they don't want the.
Guys, retirement community doesn't show. What's that?
Right.
It's amazing that we're seeing the growth we are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You talk to the businesses that are driving that growth, their biggest frustration is they can't bring people in because there's no place to live.
Yeah, but that's sort of another thing, is there's this whole development that has built in 5 years.
Where's that?
And they know, yeah.
It's planned,
Yeah.
Where is that?
just planned, right around the corner from the golf course. Yeah, and there's one house that was built there in 5 years. I don't know, it's beautiful.
To connect with the right people.
It's got all the amenities.
That's what they're looking for, is those places that are, number one, out of floodplain, just harder around here.
It's out of the floodplain, it's in a great
I think the city
company.
officials are frustrated. Any place they have available, they could look at developing.
Then we look at Boas, almost the entire town is in the flood.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep. It's frustrating. But it's the reality.
We are a little over halfway and we've already done. I'm so depressed by that.
Reducing our jobs and stuff.
Not today anyway. I mean, I wanted this process to
No,
be
with
done.
paper clips and post-its. We're never gonna.
No, it's personal.
It's transformative change.
Although, man, it would be nice to get a handle on health insurance increase. 15% is
16% is the.
That's
unemployment
huge.
benefits rate.
That is huge.
Yeah.
That
What is
was,
wrong with that? I mean, that
I
doesn't
know.
even make any sense.
I didn't expect that. I expected maybe like 10 or something at worst case scenario.
Federal money that's been pouring in. The insurance company is good.
Like I said, my first
Yeah.
reaction was, oh, they want.
Catch up, I think.
They're trying to get rid of us.
Yeah.
At least that's the way Cameron made.
Is there, Clint, is there any hope of the insurance going down from 15?
If we want to do, if there's other ways we can do it by modifying the plan design or premium shares. I mean, there's ways to reduce the county's.
I know, but so if we give them a raise, but then make them pay more of their premium, that's not a raise.
For those that are on the insurance plan and depending on where, depending on where they're on the pay scale, maybe they're coming out ahead. If you're at the lower end of the pay scale where you're maybe getting a 7% increase on your dollar amount here, but such percentage here gets washed out real quick, yeah.
Yeah. You said 157?
Would screen from going to 14% to 20%.
I was
They
thinking,
would still be paying less per paycheck
Yep.
than anybody outside of local government.
Absolutely. I no, that's just, yeah.
forced marriages, we only employ people that spouses already work for a school district. I think you have to push everybody towards their health insurance, and I don't think that.
But I mean,
Yeah.
if you look at it, what's the premium right now? Total for a family? I pay $94 a month, so it's gotta be.
The 17,000. Fair. Total premium.
What?
Yeah, that's it.
1426, so.
Yeah.
I mean, 8.
Yeah. Did Tammy calculate what the increase in the health insurance was? Did she get to that?
Yes, that number that's highlighted on there is the increase of the 7% to the 16%, but that doesn't include though, like Tom was saying, absorption from Pine Valley or Health and Human Services.
That's where we.
It's like that 59. You don't see action or most of the time.
What's that?
What was that? Roughly
Hello.
194 or something?
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, I was on the phone, I was like, sorry, I don't mean to cut you short, but I have to go.
Yeah, yeah. That's okay. We were kind of on a little bit of a break.
I'm sorry, we had Jen first. I was thinking Sue was next. Jen then Sue. Thank you for coming.
Oh, hi, Sue.
I mean, I paid $5 bucks.
But
Every
you are.
Yeah, I saw, I think it's good to the trip.
Yeah, right.
Yes, you're at 2, but Sue's at 2:15.
No, free.
How are you guys surviving? You're kind of hitting that afternoon low area.
We're good. I mean, it's,
Good.
it's
It's
stressful,
actually quite a bit of energy in there.
it's stressful enough that keeps you awake.
Yeah. Well, geez, I hope mine's not too stressful.
Well, just when you realize how much money we need and how much money we don't have.
Oh, yeah.
And it just keeps adding on.
We just keep piling on, just keep piling on, more we don't have.
Yeah, what's another fun?
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's the part that's scary is when you're
Yeah.
listening, it's like, oh, it wasn't that much, and then he tells us double. Yeah,
That's what's happening.
but I suppose 100 and some of that was the sheriff's department.
Part of the, but the biggest chunk is the health insurance.
Yeah.
The initial increase on it was
He was here already and.
258,000. That doesn't
Yeah.
include what health and human services is going to throw through
All public.
reimbursements or what Tom can reimburse through revenues or even probably highway department can absorb through some of their revenues. So
Right.
it's overinflated right
Yeah.
now with.
But still, it's still.
It's several hundreds of thousands, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna call the meeting back to order and we have Jennifer Lau, correct?
That's correct.
Register and probate. So
Correct.
I'm gonna move the speaker just a little bit closer to you. Make sure to talk into the speaker so folks online can hear you, and this is being recorded also.
Okay.
And then if you just want to start with a presentation and then we'll ask questions after you're finished.
Okay. Well, essentially, my budget is not changing as you requested, to try and stay where we're at and to not have a 0% increase. So, this year, it was fairly easy to do that because, we had, just to give it a real quick background, we had hired Devin McNerlin, who is now Devin Rucknow, from the law enforcement, and she became the deputy. And that, the salary from that came from the clerk of court. And so when she came on board, she was hired and that salary was added to the budget in 2021. And so essentially, when she got married, her insurance reduced. And so it was pretty easy to keep the bottom line the same. And so right now I have it at, my budget would basically decrease by 51 cents. So next year I will have new challenges, but this year it was pretty easy just to make those cuts.
Very well said. Thank you.
Okay, any questions for Ms. Lau?
So a little on the particular line items, there were some adjustments, but the bottom line essentially stayed the same.
Okay. Well, you're making our job very easy. People usually have a lot more questions when it's more challenging, so.
Yeah, so I guess we'll consider this year a little bit of a gift and
Yes.
we might have more next year, but I'd be happy if there's any details, any line items, anything in particular. This time of year, my budget looks under budget, but we don't receive the bills from the attorneys till the end of the year. A lot of times attorneys actually only bill once or twice through the year. And they, I've been trying to encourage them to do that more often. on a quarterly or at least semi-annual basis so we can see where we're at. But the reality is that a lot of times we don't get the full bills from the attorneys on the cases until January and February, and sometimes even March. So they just sit down and do all of their billing at the end of the year.
Sure.
Yes.
So you didn't make any cuts to your guardian, like your attorney fees line item, you left it intact.
Correct.
And because she's not taking health insurance, that's how you covered
Right.
the raise.
Yes.
Okay. So essentially your budget should be pretty close to being accurate. It's not like you had to make cuts that you're really gonna end up having to pay anyway.
Right. I'm actually, so the last 2 years, when it was all said and done, my budget has been over budget. When, it didn't reflect that necessarily even in December, but by the time everything was turned in January and February for the previous year, it actually ended up being, over budget. The last year, it was over budget, by, around $11,000. So I'm hoping this year that we will be exactly at budget.
So did you add $11,000 into your budget for this year so that it will be accurate, or?
So there has been some very time-consuming cases that I'm hoping will, one, come to a little bit of a closure, so that's one thing. And two, with the insurance adjustment, then I'm hoping that that will all even out, that the attorney fees will not have that in pushing this over budget, and the insurance will absorb that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if everyone understands what she does, but you don't necessarily know how many attorney fees you're gonna have in any given year, sort of guess based on past years.
That's exactly correct. So they are court-appointed attorneys. So for the children's cases, they are guardian ad litems, which are attorneys that act in the best interest of the children. In adult guardianships, the same thing. There are guardian ad litems that act in the best interest, and then they can contest it and feel that they don't need a guardian ad litem, and sometimes adversary counsel is appointed. And then sometimes there's the parents that the judge just feels like need additional representation based on where they're at and their education and different things. So he will appoint court-appointed attorneys for the parents in certain cases. And so I never know how long a case is going to take, how many hearings will take place, how much is going to be contested. So there is, a lot of variation within those case types. So I'm only basing it on previous years. I will say that it does seem that adult guardianships are increasing a little bit with dementia and different things, and adults, the aging that are at risk. So that does seem to be a little bit of a trend.
Sure. Yes. Before you go, Ms. Lau, I want to congratulate you on your willingness to basically job share with the court's office. It's very helpful, and it's probably perhaps a harbinger of things to come in the county. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, thank you for coming. It was short and sweet.
You're welcome. So if there's any questions as time goes on along the way, feel free to stop in and say hello and ask questions. So
It's also a great place to file your will. I learned that.
yeah.
So, if anyone's got a will that they want to put in safekeeping, go to the register and probate.
Yes, and I encourage all of you to get your affairs in order.
On that note, right?
Okay.
Considering the budget.
We probably need to. Okay, Sue Triggs, you're up next. Register of Deeds. So we have, as you probably already know, we have several people online, so that's how they pick up your voice right there, that speaker. So just make sure to speak loudly and mostly into that and less to us.
Okay. I'm not a real loud speaker.
We'll move a little closer. Mr. Seeple, speak up if we can't hear you.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, my budget did increase due to health insurance increases and salary increases.
And, I guess that's the main area. Do you want to go through my budget line for line?
No, if you could give us a summary of your budget and then using that narrative of, say your office goals and how you've dealt with the 0% reduction levy request from the finance committee, just giving an overview, not going through everything. You've probably got about, 5 to 10 minutes to give an overview.
Well, I pretty much kept my line items the same, except for, like I said, salary increases and health insurance. Some of the things I could have cut on one would be, restoration, but I only get $1,000 a year, and these are the kind of books that I'm trying to restore, so they, stay together. And I've been doing it for several years. And when you use these, in public uses them, pages can come missing. We do have them all scanned, but still, you don't want to lose any documents. I guess I just really, that's one area we could take $1,000 out. If you wanted to.
If I can add, just so everybody's kind of on the same context. So last year, Sue, we utilized funds from the
Redaction?
redaction to augment staff salaries, correct?
Right.
Like about $30,000. So going forward into this year, there's that gap that we intend to make up out of levy to keep office whole. It's kind of so beyond, that's the other cushion we have to make up for. The guidance we've given utilized a lot of grant money in order to reach those types of hours.
But that wasn't grant money. It was,
I'm sorry, not grant
yeah,
money.
it was fees we collected that we
Correct.
put in a separate account.
Gotcha, thank you.
Right,
Mr. Chairman.
So I'm a little confused because on the tax levy distribution, no, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. On the levy by departments spreadsheets, it says Register of Deeds 2021 levy 85 grand. I'm sorry, 33 grand. And then this year it says -7 grand. Is that correct?
well, I don't believe we were ever in the negative last year.
No, this is what would be requested off the levy. Yeah, go ahead.
So Sue, the sheets you turned in sheets that had expenditures of $169,540.64 in your core budget for your expenditures. But then the revenue sheets that were submitted for the Register of Deeds, there was fees for $111,627 and $65,000. So that -7 amount is actually showing that your revenues were more than your expenditures, which is what Sean is referring to on the distribution of the levy there, because it's obviously, this is saying that there's not a levy. So I think we need to look at your worksheets and look at what was submitted, because I think we need to clean up some stuff there.
Yeah, I think I'm guessing it's the levy that we need to reinsert back into it based on using that. I've already got the
Redaction.
Okay, so do you want last year's or? I mean, last year in 2020, my budget appropriation was $43. My office expenses, I'm not going to do the odd numbers. Office expenses was $140,000. And my office receipts were $460,000. Fees paid to the state was $263,000. And to the county land records fund, we paid $30,000. And so my actual receipts were $165,000. So, I just, that's, almost 25,000 more than what my expenses were last year. And I expect it to be the same this year because it seems like we've gotten even more business and more busier this year with recordings, sales, et cetera. So, I guess I kind of budgeted in a similar manner.
So am I understanding this right, that you turned in a projected budget of 176,000 in revenues and 169,000 in expenditures?
I believe so. Let me see what the revenue.
So that would be saying that you'd be bringing $7,000.
111. That was for, okay, that's revenues. And this other one is for transfer fees. That's 65,000 in transfer fees.
That's
So you would-
176.
You would add those two together.
176, yep.
Uh-huh. And I'm budgeting 169.
So we're showing that you would be actually bringing in $7,000 to the county.
Right. I mean, it's a forecast, just,
Yeah.
It's a guess, but I'm just going on what last year was and how we're doing this year. And
So do we need to be discussing the use of the redaction fee fund or whatever that is? Because otherwise it just looks like you're having a great year, you're bringing in a lot of money, so you exceeded the guidance from the committee.
Is the problem that we put this 30,000 in a different fund?
we didn't use 30,000 last year, did we? Wasn't it 20,000? I believe. I think we had 30. We used 20 last year.
We had initially on there for 20, I think then we had the option to use an additional 10.
Right.
But we kept it-
But actually, we wouldn't have even had to have used that last year because I did cover my expenses.
That's what I just,
To a tune of
I mean, because you're saying.
25,000.
To cover your expenses this year, you would need 30,000, or for next year, you would need this 30,000 or some of that 30,000 that you put in the land records fund. Is that correct? I'm just reading a summary, is what I'm reading.
Oh, okay. What I'm saying is, I didn't know what was gonna happen here or what questions you were gonna ask. I think we'll be fine.
Okay,
But if we did need money, because I'm 5,000 over last year because of insurance and increases in salaries. And so I thought if we did need the extra, if I did have to meet zero, even though I would bring in more money than I'm spending, I would need $5,000 from someplace to meet my same bottom line as I had last year. And like last year, we gave, my office put in $30,000 just in the county land records. And in the state land records, we put even more. I mean, a lot of my fees go to the state.
But when we're talking about a 0% levy increase, that's expenditures minus revenues. So
Okay.
you're just thinking of just expenditures when you say I went up 5,000, is that correct?
Right,
But your
right.
revenues
And-
are going above that.
Right,
So
I
you're-
thought that's what you wanted me to,
No,
the
no,
expenditures you didn't.
no,
want
your
me to-
expenditures can go up as long as your revenues can cover it.
Okay,
So no, you're fine. And in fact, you're better situated than almost any department. So, right? Am I not
Yes.
reading this right?
Yeah, okay, the budget worksheet you submitted show in overage, you have more revenues and expenditures, which is that minus $7,000 number. So when you're referencing the $5,000 difference, all you're saying is that the very top line of this summary, your salaries basically, or your core budget went up $5,000 due to, wage
Right,
increase, correct?
right.
So you, based on the information you submitted to us, that came back to us that you were $7,000 below your levy than you were
Okay,
last year. So
okay.
like Sean said, you're not over levy, you're way under.
You're bringing money back to the county. So
Right.
we're-
Yeah,
I think
well,
we're
I
all
hope
very
so.
happy. Can I speak for everybody? Okay. Okay. So you don't need to be grilled. That's the upshot.
Mr. Chairman,
I'm quite understanding exactly what you wanted. I just thought that our expenses, you wanted to not go up any more than they did. last
Expenses
year.
minus revenues, so.
Okay.
Not every department has revenues, so.
Right, it's a little
Right.
awkward to explain,
Right,
but,
yeah.
Mr. Seat, go ahead.
so, You budgeted, of course, the 7% increase in salaries, correct?
I believe that was in the figure given to us. So
Yeah,
yes.
and what did you budget for increase in health insurance?
The figure they gave us, what was that, 6%?
The same as everyone else.
This-
Same as everyone else.
Okay, so that's a variable,
For everyone it is.
yes.
Yeah, I've got that included in my expenses.
Thank you, Sue.
You're welcome.
Okay. Well, there you go. That's all it entailed. Well, thanks for
Well,
coming.
I hope our year keeps going the way it is. I kind of calculated through April and we're ahead of last year, so as far as bringing revenue in, so.
Great. Well, thanks for bringing in revenue to the county.
Well, I hope I can continue. And then there was one other thing is that, to bring in extra revenue, I'm kind of considering with going with a different vendor because the vendor we have, I think they're gonna increase their fees for our indexing and scanning system. And if they do, I've been talking to a couple different vendors. One vendor says he won't charge us any more than we're paying now. But he's got, I'll have to come back to you with it because he's got a formula of how he's gonna do that. And, I mean, we could charge search fees when people search online. I don't know how that's going to hit the public though, if they're going to be happy about that, like if you charge them a $5 search fee. So when it comes to that point, I'll probably come back and talk to you guys again.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Does that tie in with possibly your things you're looking at?
Oh.
No.
But,
Not at
but,
all.
but that could bring in additional revenue, is what I'm thinking.
And then the more of these books that you get transferred to electronic means, that's more potential revenue as well,
Well,
correct?
We've
Because,
got almost all of them, we've got almost all of them scanned. There's just a few that didn't get scanned, and as we get them checked to make sure we've got them indexed correctly, then I put them out on the internet. And, you know, there's some days I'll come in the office and I'll have somebody bought $5 worth of copies. There'll be another day I'll come in and maybe they bought $100 worth of copies, but that's all money that, while we're at home sleeping, is coming into the county. So, I like that. So, but it's, yeah, and I'm hoping, you know, the more we get out there, the more revenue we make.
How far back are your records going to be scanned?
1850, back to the very beginning.
We already are.
Yeah, there's just a few books that the company missed. And that's why I wanted to leave a little money in that redaction fund, because when they come back and scan, I'll have the money there to pay them. So instead of having to ask for the money.
Are those records just primarily deeds?
No, it's anything that has anything to do with real estate. There are deeds, mortgages, satisfaction of mortgages, assignments, abridgments of divorce, plats, yeah, certified survey maps. I've probably got over 100 different document types
Okay,
that are recorded with us.
thank you.
thanks for the education.
Okay.
It's great.
And if you guys have any questions, just stop in and, or call me back over, I guess.
All right. We'll look forward to next time. Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, so we got Tracey Goodman here from Symons. I think you heard my spiel.
I did hear your
Good.
spiel, yeah, so. Good.
Okay, so you got the floor.
All right. So I'm Tracey Goodman. I'm the director out at Symons Recreation Complex. It's our local fitness club, swimming pool. We got racquetball courts. So we're open to the public as well. We don't just serve Richland County residents. We have people come from Sauk County, from Vernon County, Crawford County. So it's not just Richland County residents that use the facility. So it helps to bring in people into the county as well to, you know, when they're here, get gas,
go for coffee. A lot of them like coffee after their water aerobics. So kind of our community health and wellness center, more than just a fitness kind of club. So for us, out at Symons, I kind of went and got creative to keep the 0% because the 0%, you know, as we're getting the raises, the salary increases, and then the health insurance increases, I kind of went and got a little creative on it, and we've had to cut back our hours a bit with COVID, and so we're just going to keep those fob hours. It's been going actually pretty well, where people, they've been doing it for years anyways, using the key fobs to get in to use the exercise room. So we're just kind of increasing those as well. So actually it's bringing in a little bit more revenue because we do, people have to purchase the key fobs. So there is a little bit more money coming in to purchase the key fobs. So that's what I kind of had done with ours. I tried to get out and partners with as many folks or businesses that I can. So I partner currently with the ADRC of Eagle Country, which is Richland County. And then that kind of grew out. So it's also a partnership between Symons and Crawford County, Vernon County, Grant County. I'm missing one too. There's another one. But offering, so it's not a mandated service that we provide personally, but the ADRCs, the Aging Disability Resource Centers, they have to offer fall prevention classes for people over the age of 60, because it's kind of the number one death in actually the state of Wisconsin for seniors is falling. They fall down, they get hurt, and they don't recover from it. So they offer those classes. So we were fortunate years back that we connected with the ADRC here in Richland Center and started doing those classes, and it's kind of branched out because of where we're located. We can do classes in Muscadet, which grabs in Grant and Iowa County. We can do classes in Viola that hits in Vernon County and Crawford County as well. So looking at doing different partnerships. Right now I'm working with the Richland Hospital to get together and do like a running clinic with PT, physical therapists up there. And so looking at different partnerships we can do to make the facility, you know, out there and coordinate with businesses. So looking at developing more of those types of relationships to just make our budget be better every year is the goal for it. So I guess if you guys have any questions for me.
What is your tax levy request for this coming budget year?
It's the same as it has been for the last couple of years. So it's $34,291.50. Yeah, here we are.
And then is there any other fund that you are in charge of that you're requesting?
No, so no. So the city will also be the same request. So we ask that we get a levy from the city because we're half city of Richland Center and half Richland County. So the levy, we get a levy from Richland County, and then we get a matching levy from the city of Richland Center. So that's our two levies we get, but only one affects you guys.
And do we know if our the fees that we charge our residents, are they comparable to other similar type facilities? Have you ever done a survey of I don't even know what there would be out. I don't know the region well enough to know.
Yeah, we have done it in the past, and okay. Yes, we keep them. We try and keep them comparable to others, but also affordable for our Richland County residents, because there's been information out there that there are low income folks in the area, so try and keep a balance of what's affordable and be comparable to other fitness clubs as well.
So are we below the average, or?
For the local ones in town, Fitness 14 and ourselves are close by.
I guess I mean like, are there other public county facilities, you know, similar to ours, where it's like an indoor swimming pool and you know, a gym and all that, those things? Have you ever surveyed those similar counties to see where we fall with our rates compared to those?
So there's one in the state, it's in Mayville. And so we are a little bit under them for the membership rates. But that's the only one that's really similar to us, but it's not exactly the same as us, but that one's pretty similar. We've actually, when Denise was a director, we took a drive over to Mayville one time just to see how they run the facility and did a Mayville?
Oh, Mayville.
Mayville, yes. Nope, that's okay. Yeah, Mayville. So, I mean, we went over to see how it was and talk to them and ask them how and it was pretty similar because it is government run, where they had the boards and stuff. So, you know, we went over and talked to them on it. So we're pretty similar, but ours were just under their rates of what they had for their memberships.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Left.
So have your usage of your facility, has it gone back to pre-pandemic levels or is it still reduced from the
It's-
pandemic?
It is still reduced. It's a slow uphill climb. We've been it's been pretty steady of going slowly back in. A big amount of our users to our facility are seniors. That's kind of our specialty niche. And so that's been, hit the hardest with COVID, where everybody's a little bit more concerned on there. So I would say our younger generational memberships are coming up a lot faster, but the seniors are slowly coming back in. Getting the vaccines really helped. And then once they were fully vaccinated, that made a big difference. But we're seeing that go up each month, which is great. So we're getting closer and closer, but no, we are not back at pre-COVID levels yet.
So do you anticipate that keeping your staffing level at the reduced COVID level is okay? It's working well for the facility and isn't detrimental to the services you can provide?
I think that it probably does affect what we can provide, because we have still kept our cut back fitness classes. So they used to be like hour-long fitness classes and they're cut back. And so we've been providing Zoom classes. So I do think that there is some detrimental to it, but a lot of people kind of are pretty understanding of it and still want to come in and still get their, their fitness and socialization, because they come in there for both. A lot of people do. So yes, I think it has affected a little bit, but most people have been pretty understanding and are appreciative that the pool is open and they can get in and use it, although it's not open this week because we're draining the pool, but it's open and people can use it, so.
Okay, anyone else?
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
we have, I'm on the Symons board, and we are replacing her Tracy's job that she left when she became the director. She is replacing it, but not until,
It was August 16th, yeah. So we only have 3 full-time people at Symons. It's myself, the director, an assistant director, and then the maintenance supervisor. And the rest of our staff is made up of temporary casual workers who don't receive county benefits. So there's no health insurance, no dental, no benefits that way. So there's only 3 that get the county level benefits at our facility.
And that position is included in your $34,000 ask.
Correct, yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
He did say yes. He started last week and it's going great. So, yes.
Anyone doesn't have anything else to add? Thanks for coming.
All right, thank you. If you guys have any questions, feel free to stop in, reach out, email, call. I'll be happy to answer.
Go first one.
Yes,
Okay.
next
When
week
it-
though, next week. Yeah, next week, because, once it's filled back up, it has to heat up. Otherwise, you guys will get hypothermia jumping in the pool. So we don't want that.
I got it already in.
only for the law.
Okay, so still left on our schedule